0. 455 seconds separated Max Verstappen from pole position at Zandvoort on Saturday, August 22, 2026. That brutal margin relegated the champion to 7th on the grid for his home race. Lando Norris topped the timesheets with a 1:11.63 lap time. Verstappen finished nearly half a second adrift in that critical session. Both Red Bull cars finished behind both Ferraris and both Mercedes entries. The top 4 qualifiers were covered by less than 0.2 of a second. Red Bull's deficit was more than double that tight leading margin. The team identified an oversteer leaning balance as the core problem. Poor gearshift quality has plagued this car all season long. Engineers still could not dial out these issues when it mattered most. We must wonder if this is a fixable setup issue. It could be a fundamental design flaw instead. No overnight tweaking may solve this before Sunday's race. McLaren and Mercedes locked out the entire front 2 rows completely. George Russell finished just 0.102 seconds off pole in second place. Kimi Antonelli qualified 3rd at +0.133 seconds off the pace. Oscar Piastri took 4th at +0.122 seconds behind Norris. Neither Verstappen nor Liam Lawson could penetrate that silver wall. Lawson qualified 8th with a 1:11.733 lap time. This confirms the performance drop-off was systemic across the garage. Rivals have found new speed in low-speed traction zones. Verstappen reportedly extended his Red Bull commitment until at least 2030. He now starts well outside podium contention at home. Media outlets describe this as potentially his final Dutch Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton secured 5th for Ferrari with a 1:11.494. Charles Leclerc took 6th place at 1:11.5058. Verstappen only then appeared on screens at 1:11.618. Gabriel Bortoleto qualified 9th for Audi at 1,002.079. Arvid Lindblad rounded out the top 10 at 1,012.85. 5 independent sources confirmed this exact grid order. There is no possibility of a timing system error here. One critical piece of the puzzle remains frustratingly elusive today. We know exactly how far off the pace Red Bull was. We cannot confirm Verstappen's precise championship points deficit yet. Only Kimi Antonelli's 209-point lead has been verified so far. Approximate gaps to Hamilton and Russell are all we have. We cannot fully quantify the title damage without that number. That uncertainty becomes part of the narrative pressure right now. The team scrambles for answers under intense public scrutiny. The RB22's oversteer leaning balance was the specific technical culprit that destroyed Verstappen's lap time in Zandvoort's high-speed sections. This chassis characteristic forced him to lift off the throttle earlier than his rivals due to the banked corners. Every 10th lost to rear instability compounded through the circuit's relentless sequence of bends. Engineers have chased this same handling window all season long. They arrived at the Dutch coast hoping for a breakthrough. Instead, they found the problem amplified by the track's unique demands. The narrow, banked layout punishes any car that cannot rotate cleanly without sliding. Red Bull's package simply could not deliver that precision on Saturday afternoon. Gearshift quality issues have been described as regular this year. These recurring mechanical gremlins sap confidence during qualifying pushes. A driver cannot commit fully when the car's responses feel inconsistent. Trust erodes with every compromised corner exit. Zandvoort requires absolute commitment to its elevated turns. Any hesitation translates directly into tenths of lost time. McLaren and Mercedes showed no such vulnerability in those zones. Their cars planted and rotated with predictable stability. Ferrari managed to split the Red Bulls despite their own struggles. Hamilton and Leclerc both found more pace than either Milton Keynes' entry. That comparative failure highlights how severe Red Bull's deficit truly is. It is not merely about being slow. It is about being fundamentally mismatched to the circuit's character. The team took a step forward from free practice, according to Verstappen, yet that progress was insufficient to challenge for the front rows. Progress measured against your own baseline means little when rivals leap ahead. The gap to Norris grew larger as conditions evolved. Rain threatened during Q3 and forced strategic gambles. Teams had to use their final laps before the track deteriorated. Norris capitalized on that pressure with a decisive improvement. Verstappen could not find the same reserve in his tires or setup. His final effort fell short of even matching his earlier benchmark. The clock showed 1:11.618 when the checkered flag waved. That timestamp now defines his weekend narrative. Home crowds expected dominance, or at least contention. They witnessed a champion wrestling an uncooperative machine instead. The emotional weight of that performance cannot be overstated. Media coverage reflected that collective disappointment immediately. Headlines emphasized the worst Dutch qualifying of his career. Specialist press treated this as notably underwhelming, not routine. The narrative shifted from title defense to damage limitation overnight. So, where does that leave the team heading into race day? McLaren and Mercedes didn't just beat Red Bull, they erased them from the top 4 entirely. Lando Norris's 1:11.63 pole lap wasn't merely fast, it was a statement of intent that left no room for argument. George Russell slotted into second at 1:11.265, just 0.102 seconds adrift, proving Mercedes had genuine single-lap pace to match the Woking team. Kimi Antonelli followed in third with a 1:11, 2:96, only 0.03 behind his teammate, while Oscar Piastri completed the lockout at 1:11, 3:05, 4 cars, 2 teams. Less than 0.2 separating first from fourth. That density at the sharp end is what makes Red Bull's absence so glaring. When the top 4 are covered by Ito, 142 seconds, being Ito 455 seconds off pole isn't a minor shortfall. It's a different category of performance altogether. Both Ferraris squeezed into the gap between Piastri and Verstappen, with Hamilton at 1:11, 494 and Leclerc at 1:11. That means Red Bull couldn't even claim best of the rest status. They were outpaced by every other top-tier manufacturer on a track that should have suited their high downforce philosophy. The silver and papaya wall was impenetrable. Neither Verstappen nor Lawson found a way through. Lawson's 1:11. 733 and 8th only confirmed the pattern was car-based, not driver-based. 5 independent sources verified this exact order, eliminating any doubt about timing systems or data errors. What we're seeing is a structural shift in competitive balance. McLaren has now taken multiple poles at Zandvoort across recent seasons, though claims of a specific hat-trick remain unverified and should be treated cautiously. What is verified is their ability to adapt setup between sessions. Norris admitted they had to try something new because their previous approach wasn't sufficient. That willingness to pivot mid-weekend paid dividends when rain threatened Q3. Mercedes showed similar adaptability, with Russell noting the lap came together nicely when it mattered. Both teams read the conditions correctly, both executed under pressure. Red Bull did neither. Their oversteer issues persisted despite overnight work. Their gearshift problems recurred despite being known weaknesses. The result was a qualifying session where they looked like spectators rather than contenders. The margin between P4 and P7 was 0.313 seconds. In modern F1, that's an eternity. It's the difference between starting on the clean side of the grid and fighting through traffic. It's the difference between controlling your race and reacting to others. For a team that has defined this era, being buried behind both Ferrari signals something deeper than a single off day. So what does this dominance actually mean for Sunday? Here is where it gets serious. This deficit exposes a fundamental architectural weakness in the RB22 that no software update can mask. The root cause was never engine power or hybrid deployment. No reliability failure was reported for Verstappen this weekend. No grid penalty looms over his Sunday start. The problem is purely mechanical and deeply embedded in the chassis philosophy. Zandvoort's banked, low-speed traction zones act as a stress test for rear stability. Red Bull's car failed that specific examination repeatedly. The oversteer leaning balance forces the driver to manage rotation manually through corners that demand automatic compliance. When the rear steps out mid-corner, throttle application must be delayed. That delay costs time on exit. It also increases tire degradation across a stint. Poor gearshift quality compounds this handling flaw at the worst possible moments. Upshifts that hesitate or downshifts that unsettle the platform destroy rhythm. Drivers cannot build confidence when feedback is inconsistent. This has been described as a regular issue throughout 2026. It is not a new development unique to this circuit. It is a chronic condition that resists cure. McLaren and Mercedes have solved their traction characteristics. Ferrari has found enough compliance to split the Red Bulls. Only Milton Keynes remains stuck in this development cul-de-sac. The narrow layout amplifies every deficiency. There is no long straight to recover lost momentum. Every corner links directly to the next. A mistake in turn 3 bleeds into turn 4. Compounding errors create the 0.455 second gap we saw on Saturday. Engineers know exactly what is wrong. They lack the tools to fix it within current regulations. Setup changes between sessions yielded marginal gains at best. Verstappen acknowledged progress from free practice. Yet that progress was measured against their own baseline, not rivals. Being better than yesterday means nothing when competitors lead forward. The team now faces a strategic dilemma for race day. Do they compromise qualifying pace for raceable balance, or do they accept the handling trade-offs and hope for strategy to compensate? Neither option addresses the core deficiency. Both are temporary patches on a structural wound. Championship implications extend far beyond one home race disappointment. Points lost here cannot be recovered through sheer will. Mechanical limitations define competitive ceilings. Those ceilings are currently lower than McLaren's and Mercedes. This reality reshapes title calculations regardless of driver talent. Remember how this all started, with that brutal 0.455 second gap separating Verstappen from pole position at his home race. That specific deficit now defines the team's overnight mission in stark terms. Verstappen acknowledged the pace shortfall directly after qualifying ended. He stated they had taken a step forward compared to free practice sessions. Yet he immediately pivoted to what must happen before Sunday's lights out. The priority is figuring out the root cause of their balance issues. They need to improve the car's balance to get a bit more grip tomorrow. That quote captures the entire technical challenge in one sentence. It also reveals the uncertainty plaguing the garage right now. Engineers know the symptom but not the cure. Grip and balance are interconnected variables on this circuit. Fixing one often compromises the other elsewhere. Zandvoort's banked corners demand perfect harmony between front and rear axles. Red Bull has chased that harmony all weekend without success. Free practice showed flashes of potential that vanished in qualifying. The step forward was real but insufficient against rival progress. McLaren found extra tense when conditions tightened in Q3. Mercedes extracted peak performance under identical pressure. Ferrari managed tire warm-up better through the banking sequences. Red Bull's gains were measured internally, not competitively. Being faster than Friday means little when Saturday rewrites the benchmark. Verstappen's language points to setup rather than hard gear failures. No power unit penalties or mechanical retirements were reported. The problem remains purely within the chassis development window. That makes it both solvable and stubbornly resistant to quick fixes. Overnight analysis will focus on suspension geometry and aerodynamic trim. Tire preparation strategies may also come under review. Cold tires exacerbate oversteer in low-speed traction zones. Getting temperature into the rubber earlier could mask some handling flaws. But masking is not solving. The team needs genuine mechanical grip for race distance. Qualifying setups sacrifice longevity for single-lap pace. Race setups require compromise that may expose the same weaknesses differently. Strategy calls cannot compensate for fundamental pace deficits. Starting 7th means navigating traffic through narrow sections. Overtaking opportunities are limited on this historic layout. Every position gained costs tire life and fuel consumption. Clean air becomes a luxury reserved for those starting ahead. So where does that leave us right now?